Captain Lee Taman stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the stars through the wide window. The New Horizon had been traveling for 6 months, returning from humanity's first colony world. It was a good mission. They had helped set up the new settlement on Kepler 442b, and now they were going home to Earth. "Captain," called Dr. Park Minji from her station. She was the ship's science officer, a smart woman who studied alien life forms. "I'm getting some strange readings on long-range sensors." Taman walked over to her console. The screen showed dots moving in space, but these dots were huge, much bigger than any human ship. "What are those?" he asked. "I don't know," Minji said, her voice worried. "They're at the edge of our solar system, and Captain, there are hundreds of them." Taman felt cold fear in his stomach. He had been a space captain for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The objects were moving in perfect formation like a military fleet. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have unknown ships entering our solar system." As the New Horizon moved closer to home, the alien fleet became clearer on their screens. The ships were massive, some as big as cities. They had smooth, curved surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. They moved without making any sound, like ghosts in the darkness of space. "Captain," said his communications officer, "we're getting a signal from the alien fleet. Put it on the main screen," Taman said. The screen filled with the image of a creature that looked nothing like a human. It had pale blue skin, 4 arms, and large black eyes. When it spoke, its voice was cold and filled with disgust. "Primitive, creatures of the third planet," the alien said. "I am Ambassador Kethral of the Galactic Council. Your species has broken the sacred laws of the galaxy." Taman stepped forward. "This is Captain Lee Taman of the Earthship New Horizon." "What laws are you talking about?" The alien's eyes grew darker. "You have developed weapons that can destroy worlds. You have spread to other planets without permission. You are a danger to civilized life." "We only want to explore and learn," Minji said, standing beside her captain. "We come in peace." Kethral made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not pleasant. "Peace. Your species fights wars on your own planet. You have nuclear weapons. You kill your own kind for resources. You are exactly what the Council exists to stop." Behind the alien, Taman could see other creatures. Some looked like giant insects. Others had tentacles instead of arms. All of them stared at the humans with the same cold disgust. "The Galactic Council has ruled for 10,000 years, Kethral continued. "We have brought peace and order to 12 star systems. We have civilized dozens of primitive species like yours." "What happened to those species?" Taman asked. "They learned their place," the alien said. "They gave up their weapons. They stopped their violent ways. They moved to worlds we chose for them. Now they live in peace under our guidance." The screen changed to show images of different alien species. They all looked sad and broken. They lived in simple villages working in fields like farmers from Earth's past. They had no ships, no cities, no technology. "This will be your future," Kethral said. "You will give up all your weapons. You will stop building ships. Your people will move to 3 worlds we have selected. There, you will learn to live in peace." Taman felt anger rising in his chest. "And if we refuse, then we will take corrective action," the alien said. "We have done this many times before. It is always easier if the primitive species cooperates." The screen showed Earth from space, beautiful and blue, with white clouds swirling over the continents. Then the image changed. Red dots appeared all over the planet, marking every major city. "You have 72 hours, Kethral said. "Surrender your weapons and prepare for relocation, or watch your world burn." The transmission ended. The bridge of the New Horizon was silent. Dr. Park Minji was the first to speak. "Captain, they have over 300 ships out there. Each one is bigger than our largest space station." Taman nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. But something else worried him more. "Send another message to Earth," he said. "Tell Admiral Kim what we just heard, and tell him that I don't think these aliens understand who they're dealing with." On Earth, Admiral Kim Do-yun stood in the command center, deep under the mountains of South Korea. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his years as a young soldier. Around him, screens showed the alien fleet holding position at the edge of the solar system. "Sir," said one of his officers, "we're getting reports from all over the world. People can see the alien ships with telescopes. There's panic in the streets." Admiral Kim studied the tactical display. The alien ships were powerful, but they had made a mistake. They had stopped at the edge of the system, giving Earth time to prepare. "Get me President Cho on the secure line," he said. Minutes later, President Cho Sun-hee appeared on the screen. She was in the emergency bunker in Seoul, surrounded by her advisors. "Admiral, what are our options?" she asked. "Madam President, these aliens think they know us. They've studied our radio signals and our television broadcasts. They think we're just another primitive species that will surrender when faced with superior force. Aren't we?" asked one of the advisors. Admiral Kim smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. "They don't know about Project Fortress. They don't know about the Void Hunters. They don't know that we've been preparing for this day since we first sent signals into space." President Cho leaned forward. "What are you recommending?" "These aliens have given us an ultimatum," the Admiral said. "I think it's time we gave them one back." An hour later, every communication system on Earth broadcast the same message. It went out on all frequencies, in all languages, to every human settlement in the solar system. "This is Admiral Kim Do-yoon, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, speaking to the unknown fleet at the edge of our system. You have entered sovereign human space without permission. You have threatened the people of Earth with destruction and slavery. You have 1 hour to withdraw from our solar system, or we will consider your presence an act of war." The message was simple and clear, but what the aliens didn't know was that it was also a code. All across the solar system, human installations began to power up systems that had been hidden for decades. On the moon, massive railguns emerged from underground bunkers. In the asteroid belt, mining stations revealed themselves to be armed fortresses. Near Jupiter, what looked like research stations began moving into attack positions. Captain Taemin received the message on the New Horizon. He looked at Dr. Park Minji and saw his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. "They have no idea what they've started," Minji said quietly. "No," Taemin agreed. "They think we're prey. They're about to learn that humans are predators." On the alien flagship, Ambassador Kethral listened to Earth's response with amusement. He had heard similar threats from dozens of primitive species. They always surrendered once they saw the Council's true power. "Shall we begin the demonstration?" asked War Marshal Krendar, the military commander of the fleet. "Yes," Kethral said. "Destroy their moon colonies. That should convince them to be reasonable." The Galactic Council fleet began to move forward, their weapons charging for what they thought would be an easy victory. They had conquered civilizations across the galaxy. They had turned warriors into farmers and scientists into slaves. But they had never faced humanity before, and humanity had been waiting for them. The alien ships moved like giant metal whales through space, heading for Earth's moon. War Marshal Krendar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small human settlements grow larger on his screens. "These moon colonies are poorly defended," he told Ambassador Kethral. "A few shots from our plasma cannons will destroy them completely. The humans will see their people die and surrender quickly." Kethral nodded. "Make it spectacular. Fear is the best teacher for primitive species." But deep in the mountains of Earth, General Yu Jinwoo was watching the alien fleet through hidden cameras. He was a small man with quick eyes, and he had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. "They're heading straight for Moonbase Alpha," he told Admiral Kim. "Just as we hoped they would." "Are the crews ready?" Kim asked. "Commander Seo Huna's. People have been in position for 6 hours," General Yu replied. "The aliens think they're hunting sheep. They're about to meet wolves." On the moon, the human bases looked quiet and helpless. Small domes and buildings sat on the gray surface, connected by covered walkways. A few mining vehicles moved slowly between the installations. To the aliens, it looked like an easy target. The lead alien ship fired its main weapon. A bright beam of energy shot toward the largest moon base, but instead of hitting buildings, the beam struck something invisible. A shield of energy absorbed the blast and glowed bright blue for a moment. "What?" War Marshal Krendar stared at his screens. "How do they have shield technology?" Before he could give another order, the moon's surface began to change. What looked like small hills opened up like flowers. Inside each hill was a massive metal barrel, longer than a football field. Railguns, General Yu said quietly on Earth. Magnetic accelerators that can fire metal slugs at 1/10 the speed of light. The moon bases fired. Chunks of metal the size of cars shot out of the railguns so fast they were invisible. They crossed the space between the moon and the alien fleet in seconds. The first alien ship never had a chance to dodge. The metal slug punched through its shields like they weren't there. It tore through the hull and came out the other side, leaving a hole big enough to fly a fighter jet through. "Impossible!" Krendar shouted. "Their weapons are primitive!" More railguns fired. The aliens tried to turn their ships away, but the slugs were too fast. 3 more ships exploded as the metal projectiles ripped them apart. In space near the alien fleet, something else was happening. Captain Taman's ship, the New Horizon, had been drifting quietly behind an asteroid. Now it powered up its engines and weapons. But the New Horizon was not really an exploration ship. It was humanity's first true warship, built to look peaceful but designed to kill. "All stations, this is Commander Seo Hyuna," came a voice over the ship's communication system. "Target the enemy supply vessels. Remember your training." Commander Seo was a deadly woman who had trained Earth's best soldiers. She had black hair and cold eyes, and she had never lost a battle. The New Horizon moved like a hunting shark. Its weapons were different from the aliens' energy beams. Humanity used missiles with nuclear warheads, railguns that fired solid metal, and lasers that could cut through armor like butter. The alien supply ships were not ready for attack. They were designed to carry food and ammunition, not to fight battles. The New Horizon's missiles hit them before they could raise their shields. Nuclear fire bloomed in the darkness of space. 3 supply ships vanished in balls of white light. "Report!" War Marshal Krendar demanded. "We've lost 6 ships," his tactical officer said, fear in his voice. "The humans have weapons we didn't know about. Their railguns are more powerful than our main cannons." "How is this possible? Our intelligence said they only had primitive rockets. What the aliens didn't know was that humanity had been lying about their technology for 50 years. Every radio signal sent into space had been carefully crafted to make Earth look weak and peaceful. But behind the scenes, human scientists and engineers had been preparing for war. Engineer Han Junho sat in a bunker on Earth, watching his weapons work perfectly. He was young for such an important job, but his brain was full of ideas for killing enemies. "The adaptive missile systems are working," he reported to Admiral Kim. "The alien shields stop energy weapons, but they can't stop solid metal moving at high speed." "And the Void Hunters?" "Commander Seo's team is in position. They're ready to begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was something the aliens would never expect. While their main fleet was fighting the moon bases, smaller human ships were moving through space like ghosts. These were the Void Hunters, Earth's special forces trained to fight in zero gravity. Commander Seo's ship, the Silent Death, was one of 12 stealth vessels. They were painted black and covered with materials that absorbed radar and other sensors. To alien eyes, they were invisible. "Target the command ship," Seo told her team. "We're going to cut the head off this snake." The Void Hunters moved through, the alien fleet like deadly fish. Their ships were small but fast, and they carried the most dangerous weapons humanity had ever built. Seo's ship fired a special missile at the alien flagship. The missile looked normal, but inside it was something terrible. A swarm of tiny robots, each one smaller than a coin. The robots passed through the alien ship's hull like it was made of paper. Inside the ship, they began to destroy everything they found. They cut power cables, destroyed computers, and released poison gas into the air systems. War Marshal Krendar watched his bridge systems fail one by one. Emergency lights flickered. The air started to taste strange. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Unknown weapons inside the ship," his engineer reported. "Small machines are destroying everything." Ambassador Kethral's 4 arms shook with rage. "This is impossible. Primitive species don't have nanotechnology." But humanity had been studying alien technology from crashed meteorites for decades. They had learned to build tiny machines that could think and act on their own. Now those machines were eating the alien fleet from the inside. President Cho Sun-hee watched the battle from her bunker. Around her, advisors and generals reported on the fight. "Madam President," Admiral Kim said, The aliens are retreating from the moon. We've destroyed 8 of their ships. Casualties on our side? Moonbase Alpha took some damage, but no one was killed. The Void Hunters report 0 losses. Cho nodded. The first battle was going well, but she knew this was just the beginning. Admiral, send a message to the alien fleet. Minutes later, every alien ship received the same transmission. It was a simple video of President Cho sitting at her desk, looking calm and confident. "This is President Cho Sun-hee of Earth," she said. "You came to our system and threatened our people. You thought we were weak because we are young. You were wrong." The image changed to show the burning alien ships. "We are not farmers to be herded into pens. We are not children to be taught lessons. We are human beings, and we do not surrender." War Marshal Krendar listened to the message with growing horror. In his long military career, he had never lost a battle to a primitive species. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving orders from the Galactic Council. The orders were clear: retreat and regroup." The Council was sending the Grand Fleet, their most powerful warships, to deal with the human problem. As the alien ships limped away from Earth's solar system, Ambassador Kethral made his own transmission to the Council leaders. "The humans are not what we thought," he said. "They have been hiding their true strength. They fight like—" He struggled to find the right words. "They fight like they want to win." Engineer Han watched the alien retreat on his screens. He turned to his assistant, a young woman named Dr. Lee Siwoo. "This was just the scouting force," he said. "They'll be back with bigger guns." "Are you worried?" she asked. Han smiled. It was the smile of a man who enjoyed his work. "Let them come," he said. "We've got bigger guns, too." The Galactic Council's emergency meeting took place on Veltar Prime, the capital world of their empire. 12 different alien species sat around a massive table, all of them angry and confused. "How did a primitive species destroy 8 of our ships?" demanded High Counselor Vex Tar, a creature that looked like a giant spider with too many eyes. Ambassador Ketharal stood in the center of the room, his 4 arms trembling. "The humans were hiding their technology. They have weapons we've never seen before." "Impossible," said Counselor Merdash, whose tentacles writhed with anger. "We've been monitoring their radio signals for 50 years. They're barely beyond nuclear technology." War Marshal Krendar stepped forward. He had cuts on his face from when his ship's bridge exploded. "Counselor, with respect, the humans have been lying to us. Their weapons are advanced. Their tactics are unusual." "Unusual how?" asked High Counselor Vextar. Krendar thought about the battle at Earth's moon. "They don't fight like civilized species. When we attack, they attack back harder. When we threaten their colonies, they threaten our ships. They seem to enjoy violence." The council members looked at each other with worry. In 10,000 years of ruling the galaxy, they had never met a species that fought back so fiercely. "Send the Grand Fleet," High Counselor Vextar decided. 500 ships, the largest force we've ever assembled. Destroy their world, and be done with it. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Cho was making the hardest decision of her life. She stood in a room deep underground, surrounded by humanity's greatest military leaders. "Madam President," Admiral Kim said, "our spies in the outer systems report a massive alien fleet heading our way. 500 ships, including their largest battleships." "How long do we have?" Cho asked. 3 weeks at their current speed." General Yu stepped forward. "Madam President, I recommend we activate Species Survival Override." Everyone in the room went quiet. Species Survival Override was humanity's most secret and dangerous protocol. It meant total war with no rules, no mercy, and no prisoners. "If we activate that protocol," President Cho said slowly, "there's no going back. We become something different." "These aliens want to wipe us out," said Commander Seo, who had just returned from her victory in space. "They want to turn our children into slaves and destroy our civilization. Sometimes, to protect what we love, we have to become what we hate." President Cho looked around the room at Earth's defenders. These were good people who had spent their lives protecting others. Now she was asking them to become killers on a scale the galaxy had never seen. "Very well," she said. "Activate Species Survival Override." God forgive us all. Across the solar system, hidden bases began to wake up. For 50 years, humanity had been building weapons in secret. Not just defensive weapons, but tools of war, so terrible that they were kept locked away until the survival of the species was at stake. Dr. Lee Saiwu was working in a laboratory on Mars when she got the activation order. She was a brilliant scientist who looked too young for her job, but her mind held secrets that could destroy entire worlds. "Begin ghost ship production," she ordered her team. "I want 100 units ready in 2 weeks." The ghost ships were humanity's answer to being outnumbered. They were warships controlled by artificial intelligence with no human crews to risk. Each one could think, fight, and die for humanity without putting a single human life at risk. Captain Na Minyuk stood on the bridge of humanity's first stealth destroyer, the Shadow Strike. His ship was painted black and covered with materials that made it invisible to alien sensors. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "we have our orders. We're to infiltrate the alien Grand Fleet and target their command ships." Na smiled coldly. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke, but his ship was loaded with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. "Set course for the Proxima system," he ordered. "Let's show these aliens what human stealth technology can do." But the most dangerous order went to Captain Kang Yuri, commander of the Scorched Earth Fleet. Her ships were carrying weapons that could destroy entire planets. "Captain," her second-in-command said, "are we really going to use these weapons?" Kang Yuri was a hard woman with scars on her face and ice in her eyes. "The aliens want to commit genocide against humanity. If they want to play that game, we'll play it better." The alien Grand Fleet was massive beyond imagination. 500 ships of different sizes and shapes, carrying weapons that could glass entire continents. At its head flew the Pride of Veltar, a ship so large it had its own gravity. High Admiral Zergoth commanded the fleet from the Pride's bridge. He was an old warrior who had conquered dozens of worlds for the Council. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, "we're entering the humans' outer sensor range. No sign of their fleet." "They're probably hiding behind their planet," Zergoth said with contempt. "Primitive species always cower when they see true power." But as the Grand Fleet moved deeper into human space, strange things began to happen. The first sign of trouble came when 3 Council supply ships simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. No explosion, no debris, just empty space. "What happened to Supply Group 7? Admiral Zergoth demanded. "Unknown, sir. They just disappeared." Captain Na's stealth destroyer had struck, like a ghost. His ship fired special missiles that created tiny black holes, sucking the enemy ships into nothingness. Then the Shadow Strike vanished again, moving silently through space to find new targets. More ships began to disappear. The aliens tried everything. They sent out scout ships, they changed their formation, they even started shooting at empty space, but the human stealth ships were too good at hiding. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we're getting reports from the rear of the fleet. Someone is attacking our homeworlds." Admiral Zergoth couldn't believe it. "Impossible! The humans don't have ships that can travel that far." But Captain Kang's Scorched Earth Fleet had launched their attack the moment species survival override was activated. Her ships had jumped directly to the Council's most important worlds, carrying planet-killer weapons that humanity had sworn never to use. "Target the industrial centers," Kang ordered her captains. "Make it so they can never build another warship." The weapons her ships carried were called Starbreakers. They were bombs that could start chain reactions in a planet's core, turning entire worlds into glowing debris. Veltar Prime, the Council's capital, shook as the first Starbreaker hit its largest city. The explosion was visible from orbit, a pillar of fire that reached into the sky. "The humans are attacking our homeworlds," came panicked messages from across Council space. "They have weapons that destroy planets." Back in the human solar system, Admiral Zergoth watched his perfect battle plan fall apart. Half his fleet was trying to fight invisible enemies. The other half was getting desperate messages from home about human attack fleets destroying entire systems. "How are they doing this?" he asked his staff. "How does a primitive species launch attacks across the entire galaxy at the same time?" What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for exactly this kind of war. While other Species in the galaxy had grown soft and comfortable. Humanity had never stopped being predators. Dr. Lee's ghost ships were now joining the battle. 100 AI-controlled warships appeared out of nowhere, attacking the Grand Fleet from all sides. They fought with perfect coordination, each ship knowing exactly what the others were doing. "Admiral," Zergoth's tactical officer reported, "we're losing ships faster than we can count them. The humans are using tactics we've never seen before." "What kind of tactics?" "They're targeting everything, sir. Military ships, supply vessels, communication relays, even hospital ships. They don't follow any rules of civilized warfare." Admiral Zergoth realized with growing horror that humanity was fighting a different kind of war than the Council had ever experienced. The aliens fought to conquer and control. Humans were fighting to survive, and that made them infinitely more dangerous. "Send a message to all ships," he ordered. "Full retreat. We're pulling back to Council space." But even as the Grand Fleet began its retreat, more human ships appeared. These were the regular Earth Defense Fleet, led by Admiral Kim himself. "This is Admiral Kim Do-hyun," came the message on all frequencies. "You came to destroy our world. Now you'll learn why humans are apex predators." The Battle of Seoul had become a slaughter. The mighty Galactic Council, rulers of a dozen star systems, were running from a single planet's defenders, and humanity was just getting started. The alien survivors of the Grand Fleet limped back to Council space, but humanity didn't let them rest. President Cho had made a terrible decision, and now Earth's war machine was fully awake. "They want to run?" she said during an emergency meeting in Seoul. "Let them run. We'll follow them to every world they own." Admiral Kim stood before a massive holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Council worlds, while blue arrows showed human attack fleets moving toward them. "Operation Deep Strike is in motion," he reported. 50 attack groups are pursuing the retreating alien fleets. We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're hunting them. Captain Taman now commanded the first human strike fleet, 12 warships, armed with humanity's most advanced weapons. His target was the industrial world of Krex Prime, where the Council built their largest battleships. "Captain," Dr. Park Minji said from her position as Fleet Intelligence Officer, "are you sure about this? We're about to attack a world with 2 billion people on it." Taman looked at the tactical display. Krex Prime was heavily defended, with orbital stations and defensive satellites. But it was also the source of weapons that would be used to destroy Earth. "Minji, they came to our home and threatened to kill everyone we've ever loved. They want to turn our children into slaves. Sometimes, to protect innocence, you have to give up your own." The attack on Krex Prime was swift and brutal. Human ships appeared out of hyperspace and immediately began targeting the orbital shipyards. Captain Taman's fleet used tactics the aliens had never seen before. "Hit the power stations first," he ordered. "No power, no shields, no defense." The human ships fired railguns at the planet's power grid from orbit. Chunks of metal, moving at incredible speed, smashed into power plants and energy distributors. Within minutes, half the planet was dark. "Captain," his weapons officer reported, "the orbital defense stations are trying to power up their weapons." "Destroy them," Taman ordered without hesitation. Nuclear missiles streaked through space, turning the defense stations into balls of fire. The aliens on Krex Prime watched in horror as their mighty defenses were torn apart in minutes. Meanwhile, Captain Kang Yuri's Scorched Earth fleet had reached the Council's core systems. Her orders were simple: destroy anything that could be used to make war against humanity. "Target the military academies," she told her captains. "If they want to fight us, they'll have to train new soldiers first." Kang's ships dropped orbital bombardment weapons on every Council military installation they could find. Her fleet had become something darker than just soldiers. They were exterminators, removing threats to human survival with cold efficiency. "Captain," her second-in-command said quietly, "some of these targets are near civilian areas." Kang Yuri looked at him with eyes like winter ice. "The Council threatened to kill every human child on Earth. I won't lose sleep over collateral damage. But the most dangerous part of humanity's campaign was happening in the shadows. Commander Seo's Void Hunters had begun a different kind of war. They were hunting the Council's leaders directly. Remember, Seo told her Special Forces team as they prepared for a mission, we're not just soldiers anymore. We're assassins. The Council wants to play God with species across the galaxy. Let's show them what happens when you threaten the wrong species. The Void Hunters had infiltrated the Council's capital system using captured alien technology. SEOs. Team moved through space in a ship that looked exactly like a Council courier vessel. Target confirmed, her intelligence officer said. High Counselor Vextar is in his private residence on the moon of Veltar Prime. Vextar was one of the alien leaders who had voted to destroy Earth. He thought he was safe in his heavily guarded home. He was wrong. SEO's team landed on the moon like ghosts. They wore armor that made them invisible to alien sensors, and they carried weapons that could kill silently. They moved through Vextar's mansion like death itself. The alien guards never knew what hit them. One moment they were standing at their posts. The next, they were unconscious on the floor. The Void Hunters used stun weapons that left no trace. CO found High Counselor Vextar in his private chamber, a room filled with trophies from conquered worlds. The spider-like alien looked up at her with his many eyes. You cannot kill me, he said in broken human language. I am protected by galactic law. SEO removed her helmet, showing her face. Your galactic law said we should be slaves. Our human law says otherwise. She didn't kill him. Instead, she left him alive with a message that would terrify the Council, more than his death ever could. Tell your friends, she said, that humanity knows where all of you live. Across the galaxy, other species were watching the war with growing amazement. The mighty Galactic Council, which had ruled for 10,000 years, was being torn apart by a single young species. On the water world of Aquatica, the fish-like Myrdal people held an emergency assembly. The humans are winning, their leader said. Should we help the Council? The Council has taxed us and controlled us for centuries, another Myrdal replied. Maybe it's time for a change. Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Species that had been forced to obey the Council for generations were starting to see hope. The turning point came when Captain Na Min-hyuk's stealth fleet reached the Council's main military base at Fortress Gamma. This was where they trained their best officers and stored their most advanced weapons. This is where they planned the attack on Earth, Na told his crew. Time for some payback. The stealth destroyers moved through the fortress's defenses like ghosts. They planted special bombs called quantum disruptors throughout the massive space station. When the bombs went off, they didn't just destroy the fortress, they erased it from reality. The entire station, along with 50,000 Council officers, and their most advanced weapons simply ceased to exist. Back on Earth, engineer Han Junho was working on humanity's most secret project. In hidden factories on the far side of the moon, robots were building weapons that could end the war quickly. How long until the planet crackers are ready? Admiral Kim asked during a secure video call. 2 more weeks, Han replied. But Admiral, are we sure we want to cross this line? Once we use these weapons, there's no going back. Admiral Kim was quiet for a moment. Outside his bunker, he could see the lights of Seoul, where millions of humans lived their daily lives, unaware of how close they had come to extinction. The Council came to our system with planet killers, he said finally. They were ready to use them on us. Now they get to see what happens when humans build planet killers. The war was changing, both sides. The Council, which had ruled through fear and superior technology, was learning what it felt like to be hunted. Their perfect order was falling apart as human fleets struck at targets across their empire. But humanity was changing too. People, who had been scientists and explorers, were becoming weapons of war. The same creativity that had sent them to the stars was now being used to find new ways to destroy their enemies. Dr. Park Minji, now serving as an intelligence analyst, compiled reports from across the galaxy. The numbers were staggering. In 6 months of war, she told President Cho, we've destroyed over 200 Council ships, crippled their main industrial centers, and eliminated most of their military leadership. What about casualties on our side? Cho asked. Surprisingly light. The Council fights like they expect us to follow rules. We fight like we expect to win. President Cho nodded, but she looked tired. Leading humanity to victory was costing her soul. Madam President, Admiral, Kim said, We're getting reports that several council member species want to surrender. They're asking for peace talks. And the others? The Veltar and Krex empires are talking about using their ancient weapons, planet killers that they've kept hidden for thousands of years. Cho stood up and walked to the window of her bunker. Far above, she could see stars twinkling in the night sky. Some of those stars had worlds where humans now ruled through fear. If they want to escalate to extinction-level weapons, she said quietly, then we'll show them what apex predators from a death world can really do. The hunt was far from over. The final battle began above Veltar Prime, the ancient capital of the Galactic Council. The planet was beautiful from space, with purple oceans and golden cities that had stood for 10,000 years. But today, it would become the graveyard of an empire. Supreme Admiral Lee Daeho commanded humanity's largest fleet from his flagship, the Terran Vengeance. Around him, over 300 human ships formed battle lines. They faced the last defenders of the Council. Every surviving warship they could gather. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the aliens have activated their planetary shields. The entire planet is protected by an energy barrier." Admiral Lee studied the tactical display. Veltar Prime was surrounded by ancient defense satellites, each one powered by technology older than human civilization. But humans had learned to adapt. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Begin Operation Final Strike." At the edge of the system, Captain Taman's strike force waited in silence. The New Horizon had been rebuilt and upgraded with the most advanced weapons humanity could build. Beside it flew 50 other ships, all crewed by volunteers who knew this might be a one-way mission. "Captain," Dr. Park Minji said from her station, "the alien fleet is moving to intercept us. They have numbers, but our weapons are superior." Tamin nodded. Over the past year of war, humans had captured and studied Council technology. Now they use those secrets against their former owners. "All ships," he broadcast, "remember why we're here. They came to destroy our world. Today, we end their ability to threaten anyone ever again." The space battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Council ships fired energy beams that could melt asteroids, but human ships responded with railguns that punched through shields like they were made of paper. Commander Co's Void Hunters struck from the shadows, their stealth ships appearing behind enemy formations to launch devastating attacks. Her crews had become masters of fear, striking without warning and vanishing before the aliens could respond. "Target their command ships," CO ordered. "Cut off their head and the body dies." The alien fleet was brave, but they were fighting an enemy they didn't understand. Humans didn't just want to win. They wanted to make sure this war could never happen again. Captain Na's stealth destroyer, the Shadow Strike, had a special mission. His ship carried a weapon that Engineer Han had built specifically for this battle, a quantum torpedo that could destroy the planet's shield generators from the inside. "Launching in 3, 2, 1, Na said quietly. The quantum torpedo phased through the planetary shields like they weren't there. It struck the main generator complex on Veltar Prime's largest continent, and the ancient shields flickered and died. "Shields down," Admiral Lee announced to the fleet. "Begin orbital bombardment." But before the human fleet could fire on the planet, a new voice came over the communications system. "Human fleet, this is Ambassador Shin Yunji of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. I'm requesting a ceasefire." Admiral Lee frowned. "Ambassador, this is not the time for diplomacy." "Admiral, I'm receiving surrender signals from across the galaxy. The war is over. We won. On planets throughout Council space, alien governments were laying down their weapons. The mighty empire that had ruled for millennia was finally broken." President Cho, now Earth's first galactic president, appeared on screens throughout the human fleet. "Citizens of Earth," she said, "after 18 months of war, the Galactic Council has surrendered unconditionally. We have achieved victory." The celebration on human ships was quiet. They had won, but the cost had been enormous. Humanity had become something darker in the process of defending itself. On Veltar Prime, the surviving council leaders waited in their capital building. High Counselor Vextar, the spider-like alien who had once dismissed humans as primitive, now trembled as human marines entered the chamber. "We surrender," he said in broken human language. "Please, no more killing." Ambassador Shin Yunji walked into the chamber wearing the blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but she carried herself with the authority of someone who spoke for humanity. "High Counselor," she said, "you are charged with crimes against sapient species. You threatened genocide against humanity. You enslaved dozens of other species. You ruled through fear and oppression." "What? What will you do to us?" Vextar asked. Shin looked around the chamber at the cowering aliens. These were the beings who had controlled the galaxy for 10,000 years, and now they begged for mercy. "That depends on you," she said. "Humanity offers you two choices. Help us build a better galaxy, or spend the rest of your lives in prison." Over the next months, the galaxy learned what human victory meant. Unlike the Council, which had ruled through fear, humans offered something different: justice. Captain Taman, now promoted to Admiral, oversaw the liberation of enslaved species across Council space. On world after world, people who had been forced to live in primitive conditions were given back their technology and freedom. "It's strange," he told Dr. Park as they watched former slaves celebrate their liberation. "We became conquerors to avoid being conquered. Now we have to figure out how to use this power responsibly." Dr. Park, now Earth's Minister of Alien Affairs, nodded. "The galaxy is watching us. They want to see if we're different from the Council." The answer came in humanity's first galactic law: no species shall ever again be threatened with extinction for refusing to submit. All sapient beings have the right to defend themselves and live freely. But the victory came with a price. Commander Seo, once Earth's deadliest warrior, found herself struggling with what she had become. "I used to be a soldier," she told her old friend Captain Kang. "Now I'm something else, something that scares me." Captain Kang, who had led the Scorched Earth fleet, understood. "We did terrible things to protect our people. The question is, was it worth it?" They got their answer when they visited New Geneva, humanity's first colony world. Children who would have been slaves under Council rule were now playing freely under alien suns. Human and alien children played together, learning each other's languages and cultures. "Yes," Seo said quietly, "it was worth it." The new galactic government was unlike anything that had existed before. Instead of a ruling council that controlled everything, humanity created a federation where each species governed itself. President Cho, now approaching the end of her term, gave her final speech to the galaxy from Earth. "We never wanted to rule the stars," she said. "We only wanted to explore them in peace. But when threatened with extinction, we showed that humans will fight harder than any other species in the galaxy. We pray we never have to do so again." Admiral Kim, now retired, spent his final years writing the official history of the war. In his conclusion, he wrote, "Humanity saved the galaxy by becoming its most feared species. But we chose to use that fear to protect the innocent, rather than to oppress them." The galaxy had learned an important lesson about humanity. They were not the most advanced species, or the oldest or the wisest, but they were survivors, and when pushed to the edge, they would do anything to protect what they loved. Years later, when new species were discovered beyond the galaxy's edge, they received a message from Earth. It was broadcast on all frequencies, in all known languages. "Welcome to the galactic community. We are humanity, the species that ended the Age of Empires. We offer friendship, trade, and cooperation. But remember this: we are still the apex predators of this galaxy. We protect the innocent, defend the weak, and remember every threat made against us. Choose your actions carefully." The message was signed by President Park Minji, Dr. Park's daughter, who had grown up in the shadow of humanity's greatest war. The galaxy was at peace, but it was a peace enforced by the knowledge of what humans could do when threatened. Earth's children played under alien stars, protected by the terrible reputation their parents had earned. In the end, humanity had won not just a war, but the right to exist freely among the stars, and the galaxy was better for it. But in the depths of space, human patrol ships continued their endless watch, carrying weapons that could crack planets and crews trained to use them, because humanity had learned the most important lesson of all: the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. The stars belonged to everyone now, but everyone knew who would defend them if necessary.